the market that refused to panic. Everything pointed toward collapse. Signals flashed. Volatility surged. Headlines prepared their language. Yet something unexpected happened. The market did not panic. It paused. To understand why this moment mattered, we need to step inside a system conditioned to react. Markets are built on speed. Information travels instantly. Fear spreads faster than facts. In past crises, even small shocks trigger cascades of selling, withdrawal, and collapse. Panic was not irrational. It was learned behavior. The first reveal begins with anticipation. Participants saw the stress building days in advance. Positions were adjusted early. Exposure was reduced quietly. Risk was redistributed before headlines appeared. By the time pressure peaked, the system was already braced. What looked like calm was preparation, completed ahead of time. The second beat followed as trading began under strain. Prices moved sharply, but not blindly. Volumes rose, yet liquidity remained present. Sellers found buyers, not enthusiastic ones, but willing ones. The usual signs of panic were absent. No rush for the exit, no freezing of credit. The market behaved as if it had seen this before. What made this moment different was memory. Institutions had learned from earlier failures. They recognized how panic fed on itself. This time, mechanisms slowed reaction instead of accelerating it. Safeguards engaged. Human oversight replaced automatic escalation. Speed was reduced deliberately. As observers waited for the breakdown that never came, a realization set in. Panic is not inevitable. It is conditional. It emerges when fear outruns structure. And in this moment, structure held. The market did not deny risk. It refused to amplify it. And that refusal would change how Europe understood stability under pressure. As the hours passed, restraint proved contagious. Institutions watched one another closely, searching for signs of flight. Instead, they saw engagement. Orders were cautious but present. Hedging replaced dumping. Exposure was managed, not abandoned. The absence of panic became information in itself. The reveal deepened as safeguards worked exactly as intended. Circuit breakers slowed momentum without halting activity. Margin requirements adjusted gradually rather than abruptly. Communication lines stayed open. What once would have triggered forced selling now triggered review. The system absorbed stress instead of reflecting it. The conflict emerged beneath the surface. Fear had not disappeared. It had been contained. Traders felt it. Risk managers felt it. But acting on fear no longer felt rational when others were not doing the same. Panic requires isolation. This time, no one felt alone. The buildup intensified as external pressure mounted. Commentators predicted collapse that did not arrive. Models calibrated for panic failed to explain stability. Volatility remained high, yet order persisted. The market was tense but functional. It bent without breaking. By now, something important had shifted. Participants were no longer reacting only to price signals. They were reacting to behavior. Confidence was not restored by assurances, but by observation. Seeing others remain engaged reduced the incentive to flee. Stability reinforced itself through example. This moment revealed a subtle truth. Markets do not panic because risk exists. They panic when trust disappears simultaneously. Here, trust weakened, but not all at once. Stagger reaction replaced stampede. Memory replaced impulse. The market had not become fearless. It had become disciplined. And discipline under pressure can be more powerful than optimism. The tension reached its peak when stress refused to resolve quickly. Days passed. Uncertainty lingered. The conditions for panic remained present. Yet the reaction never arrived. This was no longer luck. It was behavior sustained under pressure. The conflict sharpened as the system faced its hardest test. Prolonged uncertainty is more dangerous than sudden shock. Fear has time to organize. Doubt has time to compound. In the past, this was when markets finally broke. Liquidity vanished. Selling fed selling. But this time, something different held the line. Participants began prioritizing continuity over advantage. Short-term gains from aggressive moves were weighed against long-term stability. Acting too forcefully risked triggering the very panic everyone feared. Restraint became rational self-interest. The market discovered a shared incentive to remain functional. The buildup intensified as smaller players took cues from larger ones. When major institutions stayed engaged, others followed. When large positions were adjusted calmly, smaller ones mirrored the pace. Behavior cascaded downward, not through fear, but through example. Stability spread the same way panic once had. Behind the scenes, coordination mattered, not secret agreements, but aligned expectations. Authorities maintained presence without spectacle. Backstops were understood, not advertised. The message was subtle but effective. You are not alone. You do not need to run. The system will not punish patience. This period exposed a deep shift in market psychology. Risk was no longer seen as a signal to flee, but as a condition to manage collectively. Losses were accepted incrementally rather than all at once. Pain was distributed over time instead of concentrated in moments of terror. The system chose endurance over release. By now, the realization became unavoidable. Panic is not an automatic response to danger. It is a social reaction to perceived abandonment. When participants believe others will vanish, they vanish first. When they believe others will stay, fear loses its urgency. The market did not become stronger because risk disappeared. It became stronger because isolation did. And in removing isolation, Europe discovered a new form of stability, one built not on certainty, but on shared restraint under pressure. The moment passed without ceremony. No bell rang to signal relief. Volatility eased gradually. Prices stabilized. What had threatened to become a defining collapse faded into memory as a narrow escape instead. The market had endured without drama, and that, in itself, was a lesson. The climax was not survival alone, but recognition of how it had happened. Panic had been replaced by pattern. Participants trusted structure because they had seen it hold. They trusted one another because behavior had confirmed commitment. Stability emerged not from force, but from shared expectation that no one would be left isolated. The resolution unfolded in reflection rather than reform. Institutions studied the episode closely. They identified what mattered most, not size of intervention, but timing and visibility, not overwhelming support, but assurance of presence. The market learned that confidence is not restored by eliminating fear, but by proving fear does not require abandonment. This episode reshaped thinking quietly. Risk frameworks began accounting for behavior, not just exposure. Policies emphasized continuity over shock response. The goal shifted from preventing panic to preventing isolation. Stability was no longer defined as calm, but as the ability to remain engaged under stress. What Europe learned from a market that refused to panic was subtle but powerful. Systems do not fail because danger exists. They fail when participants believe they will face it alone. Remove that belief, and even severe stress becomes survivable. The market did not deny reality. It chose to face it together. And in that choice, Europe glimpsed a form of resilience stronger than any emergency measure. Subscribe to join the journey. The